So I'm going to show you how to upgrade the hard drive on a MacBook Pro to an SSD. So I have a Samsung 500 gigabyte SSD here, and I have a 2012 MacBook Pro.
Alright, and are you guys coming to story time? Oh. Sorry. Now I'm making a video.
So as you can see here, when I click on things, I'm getting a spinning wheel. This is very common of Apple products. When they get to a certain point, they just really slow down and they get really sluggish. To me, they just kind of need to be revived a little bit. So as you can see here, this is a MacBook Pro 13-inch mid 2012. Has an i5 processor with 4 gigabytes of RAM. So the first thing you're going to need is an external hard drive. This is a 1 terabyte external hard drive. 500 gigs will also work for most of these laptops. This has got a 500 gigabyte hard drive in it. So when you plug in your external hard drive, one of the first things it's going to ask you to do is, would you like to use this for Time Machine backup? For most of you, this is probably going to be something that you're going to click yes on. If it doesn't pop up, it should, but if it doesn't, I'm going to show you manually how to do it. We're going to go down into System Preferences. Okay, once you're in System Preferences, we're going to go right over here to Time Machine. Okay, we're going to turn this little fader for Time Machine on. Okay, and then we're going to choose that SSD, or sorry, not the SSD, but the external hard drive. And we're going to click Use Disk. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to see is it's going to list whatever the name of that drive is, which mine is called CJ Mac. It's a dual partition external hard drive. And then it's going to show you what's available, 437 gigabytes of 500, and then next backup, 104 seconds. So it's going to start. So I also like to show Time Machine in the menu bar by clicking this little checkbox here, which then brings this little logo right up here. Okay, so from up there, I like to click on it and just click Backup Now. And that forces it to start its backup. So it's going to basically just work through its little backup here. This could take a while. So I'll wait for this to finish, and then we'll resume with the installing of the SSD. But the first step is we definitely want to make sure that the Time Machine backup is 100% finished. And once it does, I'll come back and I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll go ahead and proceed with putting the SSD inside the MacBook and then restoring that data back onto the new SSD. One other quick note while we're waiting for the backup to start is to go into system Preferences and go to Energy Saver. And what I like to do here is turn the computer sleep to never. And just tell it okay. What we're doing here is I have the charger plugged into the MacBook, and we're on power adapter. So the battery, we can leave the battery settings as they are, because again, I'm on the power adapter. I don't care if the display goes to sleep, but while this is doing the backup for the first time, if the computer goes to sleep, it's not going to be able to continue its backup. So I like to turn that on never. So there's never. We'll go back to Time Machine, and basically I'm going to walk away from the computer because this is, like I said, this is probably going to take several hours the first time. And it still says it's preparing backup, but every once in a while I'll come by and walk by and take a look at it and just make sure that backup is going. So that's where we're going to leave it, and we'll come back in a little while. Okay, so I went ahead and let the backup run. It took probably a good 2.5 to 3 hours. I just let it run and went and got some dinner and whatnot, and came back and it's done. So what we're going to do is go into System Preferences and go in Time Machine. Okay, so once you get in here, if it starts trying to back up, you can click stop, and then it'll basically go ahead and give you the rundown. It says the oldest backup yesterday 8:52 p.m. So that was the one I did last night. It finished up. So like I said, it took a good 2.5 to 3 hours. So basically, I just wanted you to see what this looks like up in this region up here. It says that the backup is complete. So at this point, we can pretty much just shut down the Mac. Because what we're going to start doing from this point on is we've got to unplug the power from it and make sure everything's turned off. And we're going to open it up and put the new SSD inside. Okay, so we're going to wait until we see all the LED lights under the keyboard go off. We want the computer to be fully powered off. Okay, there's our power off. We're going to unplug the power charger. We're going to unplug our backup drive. Okay, we'll close this down and flip the laptop over. Get everything out of the way. Before we go any further, I have a Samsung 500 gigabyte solid state hard drive here. I'll put a link in the description to that. This is what we're using in today. This SSD is exactly the same size as the one that's in here. You do not have to put the same size. You can go smaller, you can go larger. But I'm going with the same size just because this user has most of the data full, and I don't want them to run into running out of any hard drive space or anything like that. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to remove all the screws on the bottom of the case. You're going to need a small Phillips head screwdriver. So all of the screws along the front side and the sides here are all the same size. They're pretty small. So don't worry about getting them messed up. The only three that are different are going to be the three in the back right corner back here. Those are going to be longer. So I'm going to lay these just off to the side. Okay, so now we're going to get to these three. You're going to see they're just going to be a little bit longer. So these are the only three. As you can see, the screw is much longer. So you'll know that your long screws, the three of them, go in the back right corner. Okay. All right, all our screws are off to the side. You can take your finger and there's a little ridge right here on the back. You can lift the bottom panel up, take it out of the way. Not gonna need that. Okay, so here's our hard drive. This is as far as we're gonna need to go. There are two screws, one right here and one right here. This holds the hard drive into place, so you're just gonna take your Phillips screwdriver and just loosen that up. So loosen each side. You don't have to pull the screws all the way out, just loosen them. And then you can lift this up. I just like to put it right there, facing the same direction that we took it off. That way we're not going too far. You can pull this little tab right here, and this is gonna lift the hard drive up. Don't pull it out too far. Be careful with this ribbon cable. And we're gonna unslide the SATA connector very carefully. So we're not gonna do any damage to that ribbon cable, like I said. So here we go. Here's our hard drive. When we pull this out, you can see on here that this is a SATA 5400 RPM hard drive, and it's a 500 gigabyte. This is made in February 2016. So this is definitely not the original hard drive that came in the laptop. It was replaced, but it's still really slow. So what we're going to do is on this hard drive, you have these screws right here on each corner. We're going to need to take those screws out and put them into the empty screw slots on the new SSD, and that's going to slide back into place here in these little orange cavities so that the drive will not just rattle around. So you're definitely going to need to do that. These are small hex screws. So they're small hex screws. I actually don't have the hex driver with me right now, so I'm just going to take some pliers here and try to loosen this up. All I'm doing is taking just a little handheld pair of pliers. I'm going to try to crack that screw loose and see if I can take it out the rest of the way with my hand. Okay, there's the first one. So I'm just going to hand screw this in same way. Put my pliers down. These screws are tiny, so they're a little bit of a pain to use, but there you go. Basically, you can just hand tighten it most of the way. Take your pliers and just get it snug the rest of the way. Okay, so there you go. We've got that screw tightened in there. I'm gonna just go ahead and repeat the rest of this way on the other three. Okay guys, here's our hard drive. We've got all of our 4 screws. This is going to be the end that faces towards the outside of the MacBook. So you'll see it's going to slide in this way. So carefully we're gonna lift the ribbon cable out of here, just a little ways. Lift it up and we'll slide this into place. It just slides right in. Okay, it's all the way in. Now we're just going to take this at a 45-degree angle this way, and we're going to slide these 2 screw holes into their slot. And then these 2 should just fall right down into place on the opposite side. Then we're going to take our little enclosure, the little holder, slide it on top. Then we're going to take these screws and just tighten them down into place, snug them down, and all this is going to do is just hold that SSD into place so that it's not rolling around on the inside of the computer. Okay, so you can pretty much see there's no wiggle room there. Alright, so now we've got our solid state drive inside. All we're going to do now is just close this back up. This just slides right into place. You can take your finger around the edge, make sure that everything fits flush. Nothing should be sticking out. We're going to take our 3 long screws. We're just going to slide them down inside of these back 3 right corner holes. And then we're going to go ahead and tighten them down. Okay, so all the rest of the screws remaining are the same. So what I like to do is take my finger and place the screw on the screw tip like that, and then push it down into its hole and then tighten it down that way. That's the best way because these screws are so tiny. So we're just going to repeat that process through all the different remaining screws and the screw holes that we're going to put those into. You don't have to overly tighten these. You're just going to make them snug, hand tight. You don't have to overly crank them down. They're not going to rattle loose. They have Loctite little, you'll see on a lot of these screws they have a little bit of blue. That's a Loctite type of agent that helps to keep these from rattling loose. Okay, so we have 2 more left. Okay, we have our new solid state drive inside of the laptop. First thing we're gonna do is plug our power cable in. Okay, we're gonna press the power button on the MacBook, and then right after we hear it start up, we're gonna hold the Command and the R key. Power. Command and R, right after you hear the chime. Okay, Command R starts the internet recovery. You can release your hands at this point once you see this on the screen. We're gonna go ahead and choose our wireless network, unless if you're hardwired. Once you type in your password, just hit the check mark to connect. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to go ahead and start loading and basically downloading the Mac OS X. We're going to go ahead and let that load and we'll come back. Okay, so the internet recovery takes just a couple of minutes to load. So once it gets done with that status bar, then it comes up with the Apple logo. So we're going to let this just load up. Basically, it's just loading that internet recovery part of the OS, and it'll give us some different options once it fully loads. And inside of those options, the first thing we got to do is format the new solid state drive to the Mac OS journaled. Basically, that's just going to allow the computer and the hard drive to talk back and forth to one another, because it's not formatted out of the box, so it definitely has to be formatted. Otherwise, the computer is not even going to be able to see that solid state drive at this point. So once this loads, we're going to go into disk utility and we're going to go ahead and get that going. Okay, so depending on which year MacBook you have, it may look a little bit different, but pretty much you're going to go through these same steps. We're just going to pick our language. Okay, here's where we're going to go to disk utility and continue, because like I said, if you try to reinstall or restore right now, the computer's not even going to be able to talk to the SSD. So up here, internal, you can see that the computer does see the SSD, but we're going to have to click erase right here. Right up here at the top, we click erase. I like to just title this SSD. You can call yours whatever you want. Format Mac OS Extended Journal is just fine. We're going to leave everything the same and click erase. This just takes a minute, real quick. See how quick that was? Boom, done. And then we go up to the top left and click on Disk Utility. Quit Disk Utility. Now we can actually plug in our external hard drive into the USB slot. Okay, give that a second to turn on. And here we're going to click Restore from Time Machine Backup and click Continue. And what this is going to do is search the computer. Click Continue. It's searching the computer for Time Machine Backup, so we can click on the one that we did. For my external hard drive, CJ Mac, click Continue. There we go. This tells me August 5th at 8:52. When we looked previously, that was actually the time and date that we restored or finished the backup. Now the select destination. Where are we going to restore that data off of this external hard drive to? We're going to restore it to the SSD. So that's why I like to label it SSD in the previous screen, because now I know that that's the hard drive. And basically it's just saying, are you sure you want to continue? Yes, erase disk. Okay, and it's going to go through and start restoring everything to that new solid state drive. So this will probably go a little bit faster than the original backup, because we were running Mac OS with this slow hard drive going, and it took a couple hours. So this hard drive here, my external hard drive, is in better shape than this one, and we're restoring data to a nice shiny new solid state drive. So it's actually, I estimate that this is probably going to take, a good hour and a half or so, but I think it's going to be a lot faster than the original backup. So basically, after some time, what you're going to see is that the time remaining here will actually give you a rough estimate of how long it's going to take to restore that data. But basically is another one of those where you can kind of just let it go and walk away and come back and check on it periodically, but you don't have to sit and watch it. Just let it go and go about your day and do whatever you need to do. So we'll come back here in a little bit and we'll take a look at this and I'll wrap it up with you guys. So this has just been 2 minutes or so, and you can see we've restored 3.75 gigabytes, and now it comes up with the estimation of 1 hour and 17 minutes remaining. So like I said, this is going pretty quick. It's probably gonna only take about an hour. So we're gonna walk away and we'll come back in just a few minutes and we'll check back in. Okay, so the restore just finished up and the computer's booting up for the first time. Okay, so we're gonna log in. We're gonna go ahead and click on the Apple up here and click About This Mac. Okay, and we'll go on storage. And as you can see here, now this is listed 500 gigabyte solid state SATA drive. And this will tell you what space you're using. We're going to go ahead and eject the backup drive. We're not going to be needing that at this point. Okay, I'm going to give this a reboot real quick. So once your backup finishes, it's going to just automatically start booting into the Mac OS. So you're not going to have to do anything extra. It should just boot right up. Okay, so you should notice at this point that things are going to work quite a bit faster. You know, for what this computer is, it is a 2012 MacBook Pro. Already I can tell things are a lot faster. This is not my computer. It's one I'm working on for a customer. But you were getting the spinning wheel quite a bit. Everything you clicked on, basically, you had to wait. It would sit there and spin pretty much for everything. And again, I've run into that a bunch in the past, so this is a lot faster here. I find this way to work the best because, first of all, you're going to want to have this Seagate backup drive or any kind of external drive for your Time Machine backup because, you know, like I was saying, if you use this computer for yourself, for school or work or just your personal life, it's great to have. It's as simple as turning Time Machine on in System Preferences, and basically it's waiting. It's waiting for the hard drive. If I plug this in and just leave it plugged in, it's going to do no harm to anything, and it's going to back up whether I'm sitting at the computer or not. And once you get your first backup completed, the next backups will be much faster because it's just going to back up whatever files change, and then you have a multi-purpose drive. You can store your personal files on here. You can use it for your Time Machine backup, and you always have a backup. So if this computer decides to crap out on us, we can go ahead and go to the Apple Store and buy any other new Apple. We can pop this in and restore all of our documents, all of our apps, all of our settings. Everything gets restored. So I find that this way is the most effective. And as a technician standpoint, there's very little hands-on time. I maybe spent 15 minutes total hands-on time here. I can start the backup, let it go, walk away, come back the next day, whatever, and then put in a new solid state drive and start restoring the backup. And then it's, like I said, it's very little hands-on time. And again, this works. The only thing you'll ever run into a problem with is if you forget to format the hard drive, or if you have a backup drive that's been used on other Macs and you don't have a lot of space left in it, you may find out that you don't have enough space to run the backup. But other than that, those are the only two things I have ever run into. And besides that, it's a pretty easy job. So it'll basically take your aging computer and give it new life and allow you to use it for, you know, probably another year or two. So thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. If the video helped you out, make sure you like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Thanks again. See you next time.